Welcome everybody to the Cast from the Coast. My name is Adam Oz, and I'm joined as always by Josh Lambert, Aaron Peerless, and Tim Johnson. Tim, what are we talking about tonight?
We are talking about something new, and I love that because new stuff is great. Old stuff is great, but new stuff is great. This is a Netflix original, part of a trilogy that came out a couple weeks ago. We are talking about Fear Street, Part 1, 1994.
Stay tuned, everybody. All right, Tim, give us the synopsis, buddy.
Well, a circle of teenage friends accidentally encounter an ancient evil responsible for a series of brutal murders and have plagued their town for over 300 years. Welcome to Shady Side.
All right, so let's get down to brass tacks. Tim, you bring up an extremely good point. This is new horror based on kind of old horror, really, from the 90s, I guess. It was announced actually pretty quickly that Netflix was going to be doing R.L. Stine's To Fear Street, and they stated that they were going to do a movie. They stated they might do a small series. It was kind of up in the air as to what they were doing, but in actuality, what they were putting together was a series of movies. So it was kind of like everything that they were saying was real here. Based on obviously the Fear Street novels, it's a young adult fiction series in the 90s when some I
Did you
did.
read them, Adam?
I I really
Of
did.
course he did.
I just
Are you-
wanted to ask because I know that he loved Goosebumps and he was always going on about Goosebumps. So I wanted to make sure that, like, because it is also R.L. Stein, did he read these? And because you did read them, I didn't. How much based off them
Um
are they?
I got to
Like,
admit, I don't think that I actually read any of the material that these ones were based on specifically. It's almost like they're bringing together kind of like what Goosebumps did. I can't really picture that this was one or two or three specific stories that were written. This is almost like they amalgamated the stories of many books together to bring out the story of Sarah Fear and the witch trial that happened and the slashers. Um, the slashers themselves and the stories behind the crazy people, the people who break, and the ideas of the people and the curse of Shadyside is strewn throughout the books. So there's always reference to these people. There's all these stories do play out, but they're usually individual and stuff like this. There's ghostly apparitions, there's serial killers, there's vampire type creatures, there's all kinds of shit that happens in the Fear Street books. So this is very. Go
So
ahead.
is the book series? Is it non-linear like Goosebumps, and they just kind of link together with like
like
storylines and take place at the
anthology
same time?
Kind of, yeah.
style,
For the
or
most part, the series is anthology based on the Fear Street kids. You know what I mean? However, there are stories that link directly together. There are stories that are there. There's like two or three books in a series. So there's a trilogy of books that have to do with cheerleaders and ghostly possession, and all this kind of shit. And then there's obviously times like where you get like a story that comes out a year afterwards that ties into the events of another one, but it's not a direct report. It's just it references the fact that somebody in this book knows about that story. So he did kind of build this mesh and web of stories that all came together under the guise of Fear Street itself. So it was just kind of like one of those series where it's like, here's an anthology of stories all based around the random shit that happens to people of the wrong side of the tracks, is essentially what it is, right? Shady side, right? They get the shit dumped on them. So, um, no, it's good in that way. The book series, so it was, you're right, Tim. Like, I enjoyed Goosebumps because I was of that age, but I was starting to get above that age at that time too. And I'm big on horror, so I was looking for horror literature that I could easily access from like my public library, my school library, etc. And then I started getting into the Fear Street. My brother read Fear Street. I started reading it. I read other books by other authors like Christopher Pike that all fell into the same categories and age brackets. But the Fear Street books always stood out to me. They were pretty cool, and I did like the idea that there's a curse on the wrong side of the tracks that's causing people to go crazy, apparitions to happen, people freaking die every other day there. It was kind of cool. It was kind of cool.
It's pretty much just Goosebumps turned up a
Basically,
notch,
yes.
isn't it?
It is essentially Goosebumps for the next level because I do remember some of the things in the books being pretty, explicit when it comes to, how people died, or they see this headless apparition, but the headless apparition, like, it gives really good detail as to like the blood and the gore and the spinal column showing up and shit like this, right? Like, it was definitely Goosebumps to the next level for all intents and purposes from everything that I remember. So here we have the story of Fear Street itself, told upon three different time periods, but focusing tonight on 1994, the beginning of our story. A retro throwback that a lot of people claim is kind of like in the Stranger Things type of category, but I mean it's based on it's actually a product of its time, the 1994 time period in which these books were extremely popular. Um,
I'm just gonna say it. This movie felt like very much influenced by Scream. Like, aside from Skullface or whatever we're calling him, whatever his name was, um, like just the aesthetic and like it just felt like I was watching Scream, and that's not a bad thing.
Well, for
It's
that
not.
for that part, definitely. Like Skullface is without a doubt
yeah,
Ghostface. Like
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody debating that.
no,
No.
100%. And
No, but I just mean the fact that it is 94, Scream came out in 94, like it felt they did a good job keeping that aesthetic
Yeah.
the same.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes believable to me too that they use the time frames that they did, like 78 and 94, because let's face it, like some of the things that occur in this movie really feel like they could have happened in those time periods, like the discovery of things that nobody else has found in the woods, the idea of secrets still being uncovered and stuff like this, right? Like today you look at it and it's like, shit, we know a lot about our history and our past and all these urban legends and stories because the times of the internet and the amount of people with phones and can document shit, like we figure shit out all the time. But like back in the 70s and the 90s, like it was just like there were stories, and all of a sudden there was a reality to it when people start to uncover things and find the history and the truth behind things. It becomes more believable in that time frame, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was just right
Right
before
before
everything
everything
changed.
changed. Good way to put it. So here we have the story essentially of a guy who goes crazy. It becomes like a Scream scenario where he starts murdering people, and then all of a sudden, after he's been killed and taken down, he reappears. And he's still killing people and he's still after people, and that's part of what they consider to be the Fear Street curse, the Shady Side curse. They come to find out that there's a whole story behind this. There's a curse from the actual witch Sarah Fear, which is a play on why they call Fear Street Fear Street. It's fear, fear, etc., etc.
Do you want to know funny? Something funny. I didn't get that correlation until like almost done the third movie. Because to be fair, her name is spelled different, right? Her name Sarah Fear. And then I go, Fear Street.
That's like
Wait
the
a minute.
street they're on.
Oh, fair enough, Tim. Fair enough, Tim.
I have fun. I have fun.
I got a little bit of a vibe out front, like it was Ghostbusters in the bookstore. They were kind of panning
Yeah.
down the different. I was like, oh, wicked. Okay, I'm liking this. And then it was almost instantly it did a flop, like a flip, where now it's Scream. I'm like, okay, I can deal with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love the color aesthetics to the shots. The choice of everything. This movie, plain and simple, everything that I've been seeing, this movie is very polarizing for the horror community right now. We have a lot of people who feel like kind of like the energy that we're bringing to this right now. This is new. This is fresh. This feels pretty good to get something, new that doesn't look like total and utter ass. And we got the other half of people going, yeah, it's just another fucking 90s ripoff slasher movie. So, you're going to have people in every walk of horror life. People are going to appreciate this. People aren't going to. So I guess it really depends on what kind of a horror movie mood you're in for, right? Like, I went into this going, okay, I know the books, but I also know that adaptations can kind of suck balls. You know what I mean? Like, there's not too often when you're going to walk into an adaptation nowadays, and especially one where you're looking at a young adult series and go, yeah, that's going to be great. I had little to no expectation when I went into this, to be honest.
Agreed. And I didn't even know about it until you mentioned it, Adam. And then I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, that looks fun. That looks from a time I remember, right? I mean, I know nothing of the Fear Street books. So I went into this with no expectations. If it sucked, it sucked. Luckily for me, my opinion was it didn't. It was fun. So
I'm in the same boat, Tim. I'm in the same boat. I haven't read anything or seen anything before either. So
I think one of the biggest gripes by some of the horror fans, and myself included even, is it did feel a little too teen drama at points. Like, I felt very much like Riverdale, just like kind of like this revision of horror, but not horror enough to be like R-rated horror. It's somewhere in the middle. Like, it's not Goosebumps, and it's not like Spill Your Guts Out, Brain Dead, Evil Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street, whatever. It's somewhere in the middle, and I can see why diehards aren't super keen on that. But it was a fun story. Like,
I almost put this in the same category as I would a movie like The Monster Squad. Like, The Monster Squad wasn't total balls to the wall horror movie, but it had monsters, it had blood, it had some good kills into it, but it was also kind of fun. You know what I mean? Like, I sat down and watched this with my kids, and my kids were like, "Damn, that was pretty good." Like, that was really good. And it's not like it was like the most extreme horror movie, and it wasn't like Goosebumps, like you said, but it kind of sits in that middle realm. I would almost consider this to be like if somebody came to me tomorrow and said, "Hey, I want to introduce like my young teen to horror." I'd be like, Fear Street, Monster Squad, Fear Street. It's entry level horror. But can you really not enjoy entry level horror? That's the one thing that I'm trying to get over with this, is that there are a lot of people like, it's too not horror enough. Hey, horror's horror to me at this point, right? Like, it's cool visuals, it's kills, it's good story.
It's kind of one of those movies where, like, I can understand where, like, some horror elitists would kind of look down on it, right? But at the end of the day, I just want something fun to watch, and some gore and a fun story and some good characters, and like I had fun watching this movie. And I'm like, I can be very snobby when it comes to horror movies. You know all about that, Aaron.
We know.
Yeah,
we know.
Definitely.
So,
100%.
anything else? Anything that anybody wants to talk about when it comes to the actual storyline itself here?
I felt just sitting here after watching all three of them, and not getting into the other two, but it's very formulaic how they did these movies. They're almost like it was the same recipe for each one, just a different time period, even to the point where they had time specific soundtracks going, very like montages at the same points in all three movies, except for 1966 or 1666. But I just, I don't know, like there's things that like I can gripe on, but I mean at the end of the day, like I said, it was a fun overall story. I felt like they kind of took too long to get it going. Like it was like an hour of setup and some random shit, and then the last hour was like, let's go, right? I wanted more of the let's go.
I'm jumping on board of that too, Tim, because when I first looked at the how long it was like an hour 47 or something. Like, holy crap! I had no idea that it was going to be. I mean, you got to fit a lot of stuff in an hour and 47 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I think
for the
that's
first
where
bit, it was
my biggest gripe too is
yeah.
they filled that space with teen drama instead of
Right.
filling that space with horror.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's true, but I'll take that to the next level too. So when you look at things like I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Know What You Did Last Summer was based on a book that was literally written for young adult readers. And I got into an actual argument with somebody on one of the forums, which you should never do apparently, where somebody was like, you know,
No, you don't argue on the
you
internet,
can't
Adam.
win.
That's rule number one. You don't.
Well, somebody
you
was
don't
literally
do
like,
that.
this movie is like, you know, crap. It's, you know, it's, you know, it should be up there with like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer for blood and horror. And I'm like, you know, I Know What You Did Last Summer is based on a young adult novel written like almost identical to everything that R.L. Stine put out for Fear Street. No, it wasn't. All right, I guess I lost that conversation because this guy doesn't actually know that I Know What You Did Last Summer was a young adult book. Uh, so, but that's the thing that I'm saying is that it's like, you know, there are people who will look at this nowadays, and that's the horror elitist type of situation, and the, you know, the horror snobs in some cases, and be like, it's too kiddie for me. Fine, okay, it's too kiddie for you, but don't then proceed to say that something else is better when it's the same thing. That's all I'm gonna say, I guess. That's all I got to say
What
about
you got to
that.
say about that?
But what I'm really
Oh,
interested
Adam.
in right now is Josh's notes.
Ooh.
Oh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've only watched the first one. I haven't seen all three yet. You
No,
guys
it's all
are
just
all
the first
jumping
one.
ahead
We're only
on me.
talking the first one
I
anyway.
haven't either. I've only seen the first one. I've only seen the first one.
My first viewing of Fear Street 1994. It took place July 6, 2021 at 7:36 p.m. Right off the bat, we get a meta joke where they comment about lowbrow horror and how they don't want to watch lowbrow horror. And that gave me the chuckles because that made me assume I'm going to go watch some lowbrow horror.
Yes.
Quote, Ryan, it's me. It's me. Ryan, it's me. Yeah, no shit. I don't think, like, at any point they were questioning whether or not it's you. So Sunnyvale has some sort of witch curse.
Hey, she was just trying to plead with him to get through.
Well, it
Okay.
didn't work.
Obviously.
Early internet AOL chats. That's some good nostalgia right there. I was a little concerned that this film set in the 90s wouldn't have enough proper 90s elf pogs and other, pop culture references.
What a reference that was.
The 90s soundtrack is pretty on point. I'll give it that. This is a full-on like Springfield versus Shelbyville situation. These two towns are full-on at war over the lemon tree. Oh snap! I got the old lesbian switcheroo. That will teach me to do the old gender norms and thinking Sam was a man. Who the fuck is driving this bus? These kids are unruly as shit.
I thought the same thing.
Man, I was a child in the 90s, and if you like threw your fucking ho-ho down the aisle or something in the bus, that motherfucker pulled over. He's like, you got to get off the bus. These guys are throwing barrels and open the emergency exits like full-on Donkey Kong. Breaking and entering just to take dirty laundry. That's strange.
He was sniffing the underoos.
Yeah, very strange. So far, very Scream-esque. Very Scream with the masked assailant. when you're dealing with a human, it really agitates me when there's like 5 people and they don't just charge them. Like, if you're just dealing with like a normal person and they got no supernatural powers, just 5-on-1 them. You'll get them. I don't care if you're 10-year-old little girls. 5 of you can take them down. Wait, what? He is a zombie. Oh. And then I started blasting away meme. I just I remember what happened. I just
Then I
pictured Danny
started
DeVito
blasting.
and then I just started blasting. Hot and normal until she attacked me with the razor. Quote.
It's good.
Okay. This town throws around the threat, I'm going to kill you. An awful lot considering how much murder there is. Like, anyone that slights them, they're like, I'm going to kill you. You probably shouldn't say that in a town with this much murder. Like, you're going to be suspect number 1.
Weren't they chanting like "kill them,
Yeah.
kill them" in the bus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did.
There's another red flag for the driver. Like, sit down
Right?
and
Pull over.
clam up.
Where's that, the bus driver from South Park?
Get on the bus!
Yeah. Did you go to Pound Town? Quote.
That's 90s.
Funny. Fire killed ghosts, apparently. So that's one of the rules they established. This is the way, quote. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but
I got it, and I said
This
it
is the
back
way.
at the TV.
didn't we all?
This is the way.
First she dies. Obvious solution is obvious. She needs to OD on all the drugs. Home advantage, grocery store. I would wreck some demon witches at the grocery store.
That's
with the home
brilliant.
advantage.
Nice.
One of my favorite things about any horror movie is to try and pick out the differentiator, the kill that you will never see in another horror movie. And I think for this one, it's drowning in a lobster tank.
No, I'm going to disagree with
I
that
don't
one.
think I've ever seen that.
The bread
Bread slicer.
Yeah,
the
the
bread
bread maker was
cutter.
good too.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't gotten to that one yet. Yeah, drowning in the lobster tank, that is most definitely a new one. And then I wrote, holy fuck, head in the bread slicer. Come on, Sam, die already. You're taking far too long just to die. I wrote, you need CPR, not EpiPens, you idiot.
And how many?
Like
More
6?
Jeez.
Oh, oodles. Just popping them
Like
in.
double handing it.
She watched too much Pulp Fiction. That was the problem. She thought it was just going to be Pulp Fiction. She's going to pop it in, and Uma Thurman's going to pop right up. This poor lady's lungs are just full of lobster poop. I feel nothing but sympathy. And my last line here are, these kids are rock solid with the lies to the cops. As soon as the cop starts interrogating them, they all have the exact same line. They're
got their
just
shit
rock
straight.
solid. And those are my notes from Fear Street
Good notes,
1994.
Josh.
It was fun. I enjoyed it. It wasn't as horror as I thought it was going to be. I was picturing, for some reason, I thought it was going to be kind of like the American Horror Story, the like slasher series they did on that. So I was kind of anticipating that a little bit when I saw the trailer. And then once I got into it, I kind of realized it was more of a Riverdale kind of Sabrina the Teenage Witch kind of teen drama kind of.
Good notes though, man. Good notes. I mean, like you said, it sounds like you had fun with this, and yeah, I totally. The lobster tank was fun, you know, but it was lengthy because you're just sitting there watching, and I'm in the same way. I was just like, just fucking drown already. Like, she can't have that much lung capacity at this point, right? But head in the bread slicer by far. Like, I was taken aback, and we'll talk about effects work here in a second, but I was taken aback by the actual kills in this, because I was thinking to myself, if it was supposed to be anything like a 90s slasher, a lot of 90s slashers, it was camera angles and tricks, and you see somebody slash and then they pull away and they've already got the effect work. But now with the, you know, the good CGI that we can do and the really good effects work that we've been improving on, when somebody gets an axe to the fucking head in this movie, it looks like they're taking an axe to the fucking head in this movie. when they get through the bread slicer, that's brutal as shit, and I love it. So definitely, Aaron, you got to talk to us about the effects work in this,
Yeah.
buddy.
Well, to kind of add on that, Adam, the combination of the visual effects and like an old Tom Savini illusion with the machete that's already got the cutout for the head and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure they're still doing that in reverse, but they're adding a whole bunch of really cool elements to it when it comes to the VFX, right? So it's absolutely looking like like the old school effect, but they're adding their level of gore to it when it actually clubs the guy in the side of the head or whatever. I thought that was pretty brutal with the axe, right? And right after the bread cutter thing, that was wicked. I thought that was awesome. I didn't think she was going to die. I thought she was going to get away or something.
But at that point in the movie, though, I'm going to be honest. If they didn't kill one of the main characters, I was going to be pissed.
Right.
Like, it's like, you know what I mean? And I mean, as much as I liked Kate, her kill, I went, oh,
yeah.
Like, what?
I did not. I knew that there was going to be some effects in there, but when she was struggling, and I'm like, no, she's not going to go through the bread cutter. No, she's going through the bread cutter. And then it showed the top down where her face was kind of flayed. And I'm like, this is awesome. Yep. That's wicked. I remember, Adam, that you saying something like that. You said, just wait for the effect. And I did. And I knew exactly which one it was.
And it did not disappoint.
I watched the film. But no, it didn't. It was really good.
It's funny because working in a grocery store, there's so many safety protocols against the bread slicer. And everyone's like, it just slices bread. Why I need to do all these safety courses?
Just
show that video as like
if anybody breaks into the store at night, this could have happened to you.
I already mentioned something about the Ghostbusters kind of feel that I had right out of the get-go. I didn't know, because I didn't know what to expect with this, because I never read any of the books or anything like that growing up. I didn't even watch any of the Goosebump stuff. I just jumped in there. That wasn't a hit towards you, Adam. I mean, respect.
A little bit.
I watched Goosebumps too when I was 6.
Fuck's sake.
Can we just take a minute, all of us collectively, and stop? We got.
No, I'm good. Let's move the fuck on. Look.
He's not scared.
Okay, I'm excited. I'm getting goosebumps from this. No, just.
I see what you did there.
Continue, Aaron, please.
All right. Okay. So the next thing that I really thought was really cool was the stab slide, is what I called it. When the skull face kind of lunged at the girl in the mall and just stabbed her. It just went sliding across the floor with the knife in her slide. Right. I'm like, wicked. That's awesome. Right. You don't see that too often. And by the way, you could have taken the Phantom out of the Freak Show and just thrown him in this role, and I would have, I could have been the guy on the Rampage here, right? If you've ever been to the Freak Show. So I had that written down.
I don't see any similarities at all.
No. Okay. Well,
I thought, Aaron, I'm going to be honest. I thought that the whole time.
That's what I'm sitting here going, this is wicked.
Yeah, this is wicked.
I really like the way that they had the opening credits. Thought that was awesome. I know that's a little delayed, but and the soundtrack rocks. Now I did pick out a couple songs during the soundtrack that I had to look up. I know this doesn't have anything to do with effects, but some of the songs came out in '96, I believe, and a little later. But unless you can look that up, right?
Yeah,
you wouldn't know. I guess I thought it was awesome. The soundtrack's awesome. I love Stranger Things because of the soundtrack and stuff.
Can I just say, like, it's like, do you need to play them all consecutively, back to back, with no gap? And it was just like, come on. Like, we get it that there was a lot of great music in the early 90s. There was.
Yeah.
And, when you go to 1978, the next part, they do the same
great
thing.
Fucking songs, just.
Right? Yeah, they gotta remind you. They gotta remind you what era you're in, Tim.
Yeah.
Oh, did you
How
forget that
why?
you were in the 90s?
The fucking movie is called Part 1, 1994. Like they're not trying to pull a fast one.
Surprise!
They're
It's
telling you in
94.
the title, right?
They just got to keep you in the spirit of 90s, in the teen spirit.
I just felt like the soundtrack was great. The songs that they picked were great, but like the consecutive boom, 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 like they're on the bus. And it was like with each cut of the movie, there was a different song. Like each shot was a different song, and it
started out well. Like they used Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails right out of the get-go, and I was like, yeah, okay, nice. I'm feeling this. This is wicked, right? I'm gonna be using wicked a lot, obviously.
Wicked.
So my next thing is the school seems very tolerant, but then again, it was 1994. But I remember back in 1994, and it wasn't that tolerant.
I mean, it was pretty tolerant. You could say a lot of stuff.
But you're dragging like a fake body through a school after somebody just died, and they're still putting like cards and shit on her locker, and this guy goes running by with this corpse tied to his leg.
Well, and that reminded me of Scream, because when the two guys were running through with the fucking masks on, making fun of Casey Becker's death.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Woo!
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
So that was you're right, Adam. That was like right out of the Scream.
And that's like their school mascot is the witch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the
Sunnyside Devils and the Sunnyvale Devils
Witches.
and the Shadyside Witches.
That's right. That's right. Weird.
What's weird?
Does anybody find that that's a little strange? I do.
Yeah, a little.
Okay.
Almost convenient.
I thought it was kind of.
That's what we're dealing with is witches, right?
I thought that's why it was the witches, based on.
Oh my God!
Which they also named the street after.
Is that right, Tim?
Shut up.
Yes. Yes, you may proceed.
I thought the transitions were pretty good in this, but I did think that I agree with you, Tim, that the music, they could have just spread that out a little bit more. But the transitions were very cool. Some of those things were absolutely just flawless when it came to the transitions. I could use this as a promotional video. There's no rules in this town. There's a part where a guy gets a razor to the side of the neck, and you can see him get nicked. And it's a blonde fella. I can't remember his name right now. But he gets a nick to the side of his face. And then the next scene, he's with all his friends again, and there's nothing there. So I did pick up on that. The effects, the effects in this were mostly blood effects. But you have some characters that have just pull-on masks. So this is fantastic for an effects crew to come in and do some gore effects and develop a couple masks that are going to be semi-freaky but not too over the top, I guess, when it comes to an R.L. Stine film. But I really like the burlap sack guy. I think he looked really kind of cool.
Nightwing.
Yeah, Nightwing. Yeah. He was very cool, and I liked how they had like the sexy witch with the scarring and stuff. I really liked that too. It was kind of like showing like a pretty against the skull face, and then the dude with the what'd you call him? The Nightwish dude?
Named after the camp.
Nightwing. Yeah, Nightwish.
That's the name of the camp. Camp Nightwing.
That's right.
What do you mean witch?
The girl, Ruby.
The girl with the knives. Yeah.
Yeah, because she was kind of smoking, right?
Well, that's why the guy was like basically dry humping her.
She was normal.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that that a lot of the gore effects in it were absolutely fantastic, and mixed with the VFX, absolutely awesome. Like, I had a hard time picking out any kind of flaws, and they had quite an effects crew on this. I think they had 10 people. But the one guy that was uncredited but is credited, is mentioned, I guess, on IMDb, is Robert Kurtzman. So he was probably something like a liaison kind of person to overlook kind of what was going on with the effects crew and things with this. So I I mean, they were spot on. All the effects, all the makeup, I thought was great. I didn't usually. I'm picking out some continuity issues. The one cut on the side of the neck was the one thing that I kind of noticed. But other than that, I thought it was done really well. I think the BMW would have been towed by, like, the police would have had that car towed out of there. So that was something that was weird for me. I had the bathroom scene was, yeah. Like I thought the police officer was going to know more. I mean, he obviously knew what, a few things that were going on. I mean, he wasn't disclosing things, but I thought he was going to have a bigger role in what was happening to the kids and stuff. Yeah, axe in the head was awesome, and I just thought that they put together a pretty good cast for this. But they seemed to be on par with their acting skills.
I agree.
And stuff. The lighting reminds me of me looking at you guys right now. Like, Tim's got like a blue screen, Adam's got like a nice red in the background. We got kind of a grayish red for Josh, and then every scene seemed to have really vibrant colors, and it wasn't neon. There was some neon in there, but it was I like that.
Yeah, it
wasn't too Joel Schumacher-ish, but it was kind of a nice.
It's definitely not Schumacher-ish. It was very.
No, it reminded me of like a Stranger Things.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right,
yeah.
Guys, we're gonna hear from a friend of ours at They Cast from the Coast. We're gonna be back in 1 minute, guys.
Robert Englund here, a.k.a. Freddy Krueger. I'm watching and listening. They cast from the coast. You better or else.
All right, Tim. Let's talk about some trivia time, shall we?
You didn't sing the thing.
Okay. Let me do this again. Okay.
Yeah, do it. Right.
All right. It is time for some trivia time with Elmo.
Thank you. So, as I said during that commercial break to you guys, I don't have a fake piece of trivia this week. I didn't have time, and the one that I thought of was just too lame, and Josh would have just seen through it like a thinly sliced piece of bologna.
Or like a girl who is thinly sliced through a bread slicer.
Right.
Exactly.
There we go.
So, but the trivia this week is pretty good. So, we'll start off. In the opening scene, the bookstore shelves are filled with Fear Street books, with the author listed as Robert Lawrence. The letters R.L., as in R.L. Stein. Yeah. The Fear Street book the woman buys at the store from Heather is The Wrong Number. It was originally published in 1990 on March 1st by Simon Pulse. It's the fifth book in the original Fear Street series. As Josh walks past Kate in the hallway, he recites one of the variations of the popular Konami code: up, up, down, down, left, right, B-A, start. Skullface's costume was, believe it or not, inspired by R.L. Stein's Halloween Night 2 from the Point horror book series, which, I'm sorry, I've seen a mixture of Ghostface and Aaron's wonderful Phantom. But look it up. It's probably the same. I thought his costume was dope, by the way. I loved how simple it was.
Yep. The mask is dope as hell.
Oh, it's great. Despite the film's title, Fear Street, the movie is focused on the murders that happen in Shadyside as a whole. The actual street in the title has not been shown or even mentioned.
Huh.
Think about that for a minute.
They haven't gotten that far yet. They want to do more. And if the popularity is still as big as it is right now, in a month or two, they'll sign on to do more.
Director and co-writer Lee Janik was a teenager in 1994 and drew from her own personal experiences for inspiration. Like the characters in Shady Side, she is also from Ohio. So this piece of trivia is something that Aaron mentioned earlier that I also noticed. Despite taking place in 1994, there are several songs which are played. Only Happy When It Rains by Garbage, More Human Than Human by White Zombie weren't released until 1995, and Your Woman by Whitetown wasn't released until 1997. Machine Head by Bush was on their 94 album, but wasn't released as a single until 96, and Firestarter by Prodigy wasn't even released until 96.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys didn't know this, this movie was based on R.L. Stine's Fear Street book series.
Fuck off.
That's
Who's
my
R.L. Stine? Didn't he used to have a show, Win R.L. Stine's Money?
Oh, okay. That's a bad Canadian joke for anybody who's listening who's not Canadian. Ben Stein. When Ben Stein's. Yeah, never mind. Okay.
All right, moving on. Maya Hawke, who plays Heather, and Sadie Sink, who plays Ziggy, also appear together in Netflix's original series, Stranger Things. One of the posters in Dina's room is the 10th anniversary of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which depicts Rocky Horror Picture Show character Barbie-style dolls on a 4-tier chocolate cake. I didn't notice that. The opening scene is an obvious tribute to Scream, the camera work, and even the way he catches and stabs the girl mirrors the opening murder from Scream. This is hilarious. So, the art department tried to convince director co-writer Lee Janik that a human head would not go through a bread slicer, but she was adamant it would. To prove her wrong, they bought a bread slicer and shoved a watermelon through it to show that it wasn't possible. And to their fucking surprise, it worked perfectly, and everyone in the production office.
That brings up a little bit of a thing that Adam and I were working on a little show there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we got questioned about how a hand would burn. And the director was questioning us and didn't think that a hand would turn into what I was trying to display to him.
Yep.
So I offered to show him the picture of what a hand would be like under these circumstances. And what did he say, Adam?
Oh, well, that might. What does he say? He said something like, "Well, that might be too much" or something.
No, he just kind of looked at us and he goes, "I don't want to see that picture. I believe you.
Yeah.
Do what you do. Okay, thank you."
I think at that point I was just kind of focused on building my prop.
Right. Yeah. That kind of brings me. That's perfect example of people not knowing until you actually try some stuff, do some lab tests. Right. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Moving on. I have 3 pieces of trivia left. When Tommy smashing through the door with the axe, Nightwing. The camera is placed on the floor exactly like Stanley Kubrick's did in The Shining when Jack Torrance is trying to get is trapped inside the fridge. Oh, okay. So yeah, I read that, and yeah, I read it wrong. Anyways, moving on. The scene near the end where they go to the supermarket is a tribute to Intruder, in which the character gets killed by a meat saw, and the character here gets killed in a similar way by a bread saw. And finally, in the film, Sarah Fear is the name of the witch believed to have cursed the town, while the Shady Side Sheriff's last name is Good. In the original Fear Street series, there's an historical trilogy that explains the source of Fear Street's darkness, and it begins between a family named Good and a family named Fear. The feud began when the Fears executed 2 good women for witchcraft. Oh.
Makes sense.
Shouldn't have been doing witch stuff.
Yeah, and that was
Yeah.
trivia time
Trivia
for Fear
time.
Street Part 1.
Trivia time with Tim.
That was so loud in my headphones.
Oh my gosh.
Excellent.
Just saying.
Okay. I'm gonna back up.
Just turn it down a little bit. Turn it down.
Right on. Okay, gentlemen, it is now time for us to go around the table, give our final thoughts on the movie, and give it a review score. Tonight, I'm gonna start with Aaron. We missed you. Come on, buddy.
I thought this was a fun, well-rounded movie. I thought that the effects were well done. I thought that the visual effects were well done, and I thought the writing was well done in it. It had a pretty good flow to it. It was a little longer than I expected, and a little bit drug out, I thought, at the beginning. But as I noticed myself getting more involved with the film, time didn't seem to be much of a factor anymore, because I found myself caught in the whole plot and everything of the film. And there was a couple, I got to be straight up honest, there was a couple times where I didn't know what was going to come up and what was going to happen. So sometimes, a lot of the time, I can kind of foresee where the writer is going with this and things like that. So yeah, I thought it was a well-rounded movie. Everything was done well. The cinematography was good. Like I said, the makeup was all good. Few little continuity things that I noticed, but other than that, I can't really say too many terrible things about it, I guess, and I didn't want to. I wish I'd watched Goosebumps and other films back in the day to kind of compare this, I guess, Adam. I threw you a little bone there, Adam. So I think I'm going to give this. I'm going to recommend it. I'm going to recommend it for people to check it out, watch it.
R.
Yeah.
He gives it an R.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I was going to give it a PG, but then I thought, I think people should see this. It's cool if they're into horror flicks or they're just starting their horror journey. Yeah.
Excellent. Absolutely agreed. Tim.
I agree with a lot of what Aaron said. I didn't have any expectations going into this. I didn't read any of the books. I'm not necessarily the biggest Goosebumps fan. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. It's just I was kind of beyond that when that all kind of became a thing. So I went into this very much open-minded and blind. And one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised with was some of the tone and vibe. It felt like Scream, and I love Scream. But like there's a lot of like kind of issues with this movie. I felt like all the actors were really good at doing what they were doing, but they felt too modern to me. They didn't feel like they were 90s.
100%.
Right? Like it felt like a bunch of like, and I was looking up because I do this when I watch movies. I like to, look up trivia and how old this person is and what movies that person's in. Do you know that Dina, the main character, in real life is 29 years old and Canadian? Yeah.
Yeah, that's normal.
I would never have guessed it, though.
I would never have guessed that either.
No,
29?
she looked like, wow. I thought she did a convincing 17, 18-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand what a lot of people are going on about. Like I'm just looking through, some of the reviews, and people are like saying that it's corny and this didn't feel like it was the 90s. It should have been called, Fear Street Part 1 2021. You know what I mean? Like it did feel like modern, and it felt like it was trying too hard. But at the end of the day, when I watch a horror movie, I want to have fun and I want an interesting story. And when it was over, I was super excited that all I had to do was wait a week to see the second part. And like I had fun with this movie. And that's what horror is. Horror is mainly a bunch of like, not everybody likes horror movies, and people shit on horror movies, and some horror movies are really, really bad and cheesy and corny. And I know that's Josh's bread and butter. Josh loves cheesy, corny movies. So I guess to sum it up, I really want to rate this a PG, but like Aaron, I think people should give this a chance and watch it. So I'm going to give it an R. I recommend it.
Sweet.
Good review.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Josh.
Okay.
I ranted a little bit. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, Tim touched on it already, but the biggest thing for me is it didn't feel like the 90s. You got the AOL chats. That was about all the real pop culture that I saw there. I think they could have ramped it up like they did in Stranger Things, and that would have gave me more of a 90s feel. And just the characters in general, they felt very modern. As far as the movie itself, it wasn't scary. Like, there was no scares. So for me, horror films kind of had to fit into one of either two. They had to be so corny that they're fun, or terrifying that it leaves an impression. So this one was shoehorned into the corn and wasn't corny enough to meet my standards of cheese. It was still very fun. Don't get me wrong. I can see why, if you're here to be scared, you can be disgruntled, and if you're here for just a cheese fest, you're going to be a little disgruntled. It again falls somewhere in the middle, and it's this weird transition of like teen horror. Now, Riverdale, in my opinion, does it poorly, and Sabrina does it very well. This is again somewhere in the middle. So I have to give it a PG just based on that. For me, it doesn't check enough boxes to be cheesy enough for me to want to watch all the time. But it's a fun little movie, and maybe my impressions of this series overall will change when I see the other two. But it has a lot of really fun parts, and it almost feels like anthology when you look at the different like monster characters. You see like the slasher character, and then the girl with the razors. Like, she probably has a really neat story that could have been a movie all of her own, right? So to wrap it up, I'll give it a pretty good, a PG.
Nice.
Another good review.
Absolutely. It's not bad at all. All right. Not to touch on everybody else's points, to continue on this. This movie is fun to me. I came into this movie like Tim, but I know some Fear Street, and I have some history with this. But I came into it, like I said earlier in the discussion, with little to no expectations, because there's just very few and far between adaptations nowadays, or what's supposed to be like the next great horror movie. I mean, this could have ended up being one of those ones that you see all the memes on the internet, the stupid ass memes going, scariest movie ever made. Nobody ever makes it through the first 20 minutes. You know, those bullshit stuff, right? And I hate that. I hate that. So I like the way that Netflix handled this. They said that they were going to do something, and all of a sudden we got a trailer, and it's being released. And that kind of very quick to market knowledge made it like, it pumped it up for me a bit. But I still went in with little to no, expectations. I was like, but I've been burned before. So, I'm going to be careful here, right? But I went into this, and I felt that this was one of those movies where I kind of had to turn my brain off a little bit, just because I needed to enjoy the movie, and I didn't want to overthink it and overevaluate it all the time. Scream is not a scary horror movie. It never was. First time I seen that movie in theater, it was just a good slasher flick to me. Wasn't scary, had some corniness to it, Randy and Stu Macher, their characters and their dialogue. It's fun. This movie really feels like that to me. It wasn't meant to be like the ultimate scary movie, but it was meant to have a couple shock moments with the effects work, which turned out really well. It had some decent dialogue to it, and the actors, my hat's off to the fucking actors. They nailed their fucking parts. They really did. The main girl who played this, Dina, incredible. She was absolutely incredible. The two drug heads.
Yeah.
They were like my favorite when they were going on about shit, and I felt the connection between the characters at the very end when they're defending the two dead friends. It felt genuine to me. Like, it really did feel like when somebody said something about some crackhead who died at the store that they were insulted. You know what I mean? I got that feeling, and I felt it too. So I had a good connection with the characters in this movie, and I can appreciate that because that means that I got invested in their plight, their story, and what was going on. So all in all, that just means that it's a good movie for me, and I was excited to see the sequels because you didn't see the trailer for the second one until the very end of this movie, and then they pump it up with fucking Alice Cooper and visuals of a summer camp movie, which is the ultimate horror franchise for a lot of us when it comes to slashers. Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, all the great shit. I'm deathly excited for the sequel in that case. So overall, it's one of those movies that I just put it out there to people whenever anybody's mentioned it online now. I say it's worth it. It's worth it. Turn off your brain for an hour and 45 minutes. Enjoy a horror movie. And you can forgive, in my opinion, a lot of the inconsistencies when it comes to the 90s and stuff in this movie, because overall, the aesthetic visually was still there. So in the end, I'm going to definitely give this movie an R. It's a recommended movie for me, and you know what? It's one of those movies now I tell people about. It's on Netflix. Who doesn't have a Netflix subscription nowadays? You have a couple hours to spend on a rainy afternoon on a Sunday, watch the fucking movie. You won't regret it, really. Unless you're really just like, oh, I need the most gory extreme movie ever made. Well, then there's literally no pleasing you. So go check this movie out, in my opinion. There we go. That's 3 R's and a PG. That's a pretty good rating for the night, guys. I think it's been a good discussion, and we've had some people join us. Nobody's jumped in on the chat, but we've actually had quite a few viewers tonight, which has been great. So thank you, everybody, for checking us out tonight and joining us for our new live Twitch streams. The Twitch stream that you're watching right now will also be uploaded to YouTube, so it'll be made available there. Check us out on our Facebook page as well. So on YouTube, Misunderstood Art Company, Facebook, Misunderstood Art Company. We're also going to be producing a audio version of this for all the major podcasting platforms, including Google Play, iTunes, Amazon Music, etc. We're on Patreon, by the way. Open up your hearts and your wallets. Tim needs that coffee fix because he runs on caffeine. That's what Tim runs on. So thank you once again, everybody.
Sarcasm.
Caffeine and sarcasm. Thank you once again, everybody, from the bottom of our hearts. And until next time, Josh.
Just ready to watch some more lowbrow horror.
Okay. And Aaron?
I was cut by glass. That's what it was. I was cut by glass. I might as well stay with the whole cast and crew, right? They gave that line to the police.
That's right. I was cut by glass.
Yeah.
Cut by the glass. And Tim.
Stay safe and stay spooky.
Till next time, keep it creepy, everybody.
Good night.